This hurts a woman the most when she doesn't value you. Old Stoic wisdom. When you are no longer disturbed by their absence, they begin to feel yours. Anonymous. You might feel the urge to scroll past this, and I understand why, because a part of you already knows what I'm about to say. It's not loud. It's not angry. It's something far more uncomfortable, honest. The kind of truth that doesn't shout, but sinks in. Every man who has ever poured his heart into a woman who didn't appreciate it, who stayed present, loyal, and genuine, has felt that quiet, devastating moment, the realization that no matter how much you gave, it wasn't enough, not because you weren't enough, but because she didn't see your worth. Here's where the old wisdom kicks in. You don't reclaim your power by chasing, pleading, or explaining. You reclaim it by detaching, by becoming the version of yourself that no longer waits to be chosen, the man she can no longer reach, not out of spite, but because you've risen above her ability to affect you. This isn't about revenge. This is about dignity, about rediscovering that unshakable internal strength, the kind the Stoics lived by. It's the calm in your silence, the confidence in your distance, and that, more than anything, is what leaves a lasting impact. So what truly hurts her? It's not your anger, not your words. It's your evolution. It's seeing the man she once took for granted become untouchable, not because he's playing games, but because he finally knows his value. Let's talk about how you get there, starting now. 1. When you stop explaining yourself. Don't underestimate the power of silence. Be the man who doesn't explain himself. Here's a bitter truth most men never hear because no one's brave enough to say it out loud. A woman who doesn't value you will rarely, if ever, own her faults. She'll dodge accountability like a politician under pressure. She'll twist facts into fiction, weaponize your kindness, and paint your devotion as weakness. She won't say, "I was wrong." She'll say, "You misunderstood." And the tragic part, you'll believe her, because you cared, because you explained, over and over again, trying to make her see you, trying to be understood, not realizing every time you opened your mouth, she respected you a little less. But here's where old Stoic wisdom kicks in. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the ground shifts beneath her. That's when it hurts. Deep. Not because you're yelling, not because you're punishing, but because you've gone still. Iron mind still. No rage, no begging, no poetic texts at 2 a.m. Just calm. That silence, that quiet refusal to engage in another twisted debate. It cuts sharper than your words ever could. Why? Because now she's not hearing noise. She's feeling absence. She's seeing a man who no longer needs her validation. A man who walks away not with anger, but with clarity. You're not sulking. You're observing. You're not withdrawing out of spite. You're stepping back with purpose. That's Stoic principles in action. Measured, intentional, powerful. And to a woman who thrived off your emotional labour, your exit from the battlefield speaks volumes. She throws a tantrum, expecting your usual defence. But you just look at her, unshaken, and that stare, that's the dagger, because she knows you're not trying to win. You're not here to debate. You're finished. And no, that doesn't mean you hate her. It means you finally remembered how much you were worth before she convinced you otherwise. Listen, a woman who respects you won't demand a performance every time there's tension. She won't manipulate your empathy. She won't treat your silence as weakness. But a woman who only saw you as a sponge for her chaos, she panics when you go still, because now she's alone with her choices, alone with the echo of everything she did while you were too busy explaining to notice your own exhaustion. And that's when old Stoic wisdom hits her like a hammer. She pushed away the one man who stood firm but fair, gentle but immovable, a man with an iron mind forged through heartbreak and rebirth. And now she can't reach him, not because he hates her, but because he's grown. So don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Don't plead with someone who already wrote their narrative without you in it. Be still, be sharp, be silent, not out of pride, but out of peace. Let your silence be the final sentence in a story she never expected to end. That's Stoic principles at their finest. Self-respect dressed in silence, dignity wrapped in distance. And in the end, the loudest thing you'll ever say is nothing. 2. When you prioritize peace over her chaos. You used to drop everything, didn't you? Her call came in. You jumped. Plans with friends cancelled, your own needs ignored. You thought if I show her how available I am, she'll love me more. Wrong. That wasn't love. That was surrender, and not the noble kind. You were giving her the steering wheel to your life, handing over your peace like it was spare change. But something changed, didn't it? You stopped running. You started saying, I've got plans. I'll call you later. I'm not okay with that. That shift wasn't just in your words. It was in your energy. You stopped being her emotional puppet. And she noticed. Oh, she definitely noticed. Why did she panic? Because she was losing control. Because her old tactics, guilt, drama, silence, stopped working. Because you found something stronger than her chaos, your peace. Let's break it down with Stoic rules that have stood the test of time. Marcus Aurelius didn't beg for affection. Seneca didn't lose sleep trying to decode someone's mood swings. They practiced practical stoicism, not to be cold, but to stay centered. A woman who doesn't value you thrives in emotional turbulence. Your confusion was her comfort zone. Your anxiety was her control panel. But when you started choosing calm over conflict, boundaries over breakdowns, everything shifted. You walked away mid-argument. Not to hurt her, but to protect your energy. You stopped explaining yourself for the 10th time. You stopped letting her moods dictate your manhood. And suddenly, she felt the emptiness. That's what stings the most. Not your anger, not your silence, but your indifference, your stillness, your decision to walk the paths of wisdom rather than follow her emotional roller coaster. And let's be clear, this isn't revenge. This is a return to your dignity, a return to your standards, a return to the man you were before you let chaos convince you that love should feel like war. You must understand this. When a woman realizes she no longer owns your peace, that is the deepest cut, because now she is the one craving the emotional chaos she used to control. Now she is the one who can't sleep at night, wondering where she lost her grip. This is the kind of pain that no text message, no flirty post, no crocodile tears can fix. Don't fall back into the cycle. Be grounded, be still, be unavailable to emotional manipulation. Live by Stoic rules that preserve your mind, not wreck it. Follow the paths of wisdom, not the path of emotional entanglement. Because true power doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from walking away quietly, with peace in your chest, and dignity in your step. 3. When you stop competing for her time. This hurts a woman the most when the man she overlooked no longer competes for her time. That silence. It cuts deeper than any argument. It echoes louder than any confession. At first, you chased, you texted, you planned, you showed up, you placed her on a pedestal and convinced yourself that her time was gold you had to mine. You thought winning her attention was a game of persistence, and you were all in. But here's the hard truth the moment you stop chasing, stop checking, stop responding. Something inside her shifts. You see, what she took for granted is now gone. That steady presence, that reliability, that energy that once orbited her world like clockwork, it's vanished. And now she's left with questions she'll never ask out loud. Why isn't he trying anymore? Who has his attention? Was I ever really in control? Don't get it twisted. This isn't about revenge. This is about revelation. You're not being cold. You're being clear. You've raised your standard. You've stopped negotiating with your self-worth. You've remembered who the hell you are. Epictetus taught us that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. You imagined you needed to earn her love. You imagined her time was a prize. But reality is this: you were the prize all along. You don't win through arguments or attention. You win through presence. And when necessary, you win through absence. That is stoicism. That is power. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't explain. You withdraw, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. You're no longer a boy trying to prove something. You're a man walking in peace. Let her wonder. Let her question. Let her sit in the silence she never saw coming. That silence is your sword. That peace is your shield. The modern world tells men to be more expressive, more available, more eager. But the old wisdom, the old stoicism, it teaches us to remain unmoved by external chaos. It teaches us to respond, not react. It teaches us to retreat, not chase. Epictetus said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you." So ask yourself, did she uplift you? Or did she deplete you? If she didn't value your presence, then your absence becomes your greatest leverage. You don't announce your departure. You don't slam the door. You walk out like a storm in the night, quiet, calm, and unstoppable. This is how you win. Not just in love, but in life. By mastering restraint, by knowing your value so deeply that silence becomes your loudest message, by understanding that your peace is more powerful than her validation. You don't beg. You don't explain. You don't try to reclaim what should have been offered freely. You disappear with dignity. You leave like a man who knows he has options, like a man who has mastered his emotions, like a man who finally remembers he is the asset. Let me be crystal clear when you stop competing for her time. You flip the script. You force her to compare your absence with every other man's attention. And no, they don't measure up, not even close, because they were never your competition. You were never in the race. You were the finish line. You were the reward. She just didn't see it. But now it's too late, because a stoic man doesn't circle back. He doesn't re-audition for a role he already mastered. He moves forward, with power, with purpose, with poise. So if you're in this moment right now, standing at the edge of silence, don't blink, don't stumble, don't return, embrace the void, let the space speak for you. As Epictetus reminds us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let her think what she wants. You're not here to explain. You're here to evolve. You're here to win, through stoicism, through self-respect, through strategy. No more proving, no more pleading, just progress. You are not lost. You are rising. Let your silence be your strategy. Let your peace be your power. And never again forget this truth. When a woman doesn't value you, your silence will haunt her longer than your presence ever could. Win through stoicism. Win through peace. Win through walking away and never looking back. If this message speaks to you, like, share, and subscribe for more timeless wisdom. Comment to lock it into your mindset and connect with others on the same path. Comment to remember, my silence is proof of my worth. Let this affirmation remind you you don't chase love. You embody value. Drop it in the comments if you've stopped begging for the bare minimum. 4. When you stop reacting to her mixed signals, that's when the game ends, and the silence begins to speak volumes. She used to thrive on the chaos, the delayed replies, the warm texts followed by a cold freeze, the charming words laced with just enough confusion to keep you guessing. You stayed locked in, second-guessing, double-texting, decoding emojis like they were ancient runes. You weren't being needy, you just wanted clarity. But that craving, that impulse to understand her mood swings, that's what she fed on. Not because she was cruel, not because she hated you, but because control felt good. Power is intoxicating, and in your confusion, she felt powerful. You were the one spinning, and she got to stand still. Until one day, you didn't react to the disappearing acts. You didn't ask, "Are you okay?" You didn't chase her validation like a lost dog looking for its leash. No more detective work, no more decoding silence. You simply stopped. You sat with the uncertainty, smiled gently, and said, "I'm good." And this time, you meant it. That's when the whole damn dynamic flipped. Because here's what old Stoic wisdom teaches: a man with an iron mind does not flinch at emotional games. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't fall for illusions dressed up as affection. Women who don't truly value you don't expect your silence. They expect reaction, drama, attention, because that's what keeps them feeling significant. Your anxiety. It was never yours to carry. It was bait. But when you go still, When your energy turns inward and you stand grounded in Stoic principles, that silence, that peace, that unapologetic calm, it cuts deeper than any question you ever asked. Now she's the one left wondering, why isn't he asking? Why isn't he worried? Why is he calm when I'm chaotic? And that, right there, that's the sting, because you've taken away the fuel, the emotional feedback loop she relied on. You're not rude, you're not angry, you're just done. Men of strength understand this. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every question deserves an answer. And not every woman who walks into your life deserves front row access to your mind, your peace, or your reactions. Old Stoic wisdom tells us, control yourself, or be controlled. An iron mind knows when to engage and when to retreat. And when you retreat into silence, not to punish, but to preserve yourself, that silence becomes louder than any outburst. Don't let confusion be your compass. Don't let mixed signals dictate your self-worth. Be calm, be still, be the man who doesn't need to chase clarity from someone who thrives in chaos. That's how you flip the script. That's how you remind her, and yourself, that the man who walks away from the noise holds more power than the one begging for answers in the dark. You must learn this. When you stop reacting, you start leading. That's not cruelty. That's discipline. That's self-respect. That's Stoic principles in action. And that, my friend, is what leaves the deepest impression of all. 5. When you start smiling without her? There's a silent turning point in a man's life that she never sees coming. It doesn't come with fireworks or long monologues. No screaming, no threats, no poetic closure. Just a smile, a genuine one. And the tragedy for her, that smile isn't about her anymore. You used to orbit her world. You waited on her replies. You sent her memes just to hear her laugh. You rearranged your days just to steal a sliver of her time. You were the man in waiting. Waiting for validation. Waiting for affection. Waiting to matter. But one day, something shifts. You start smiling without her. It's not forced. It's not revenge. It's freedom. You're in the gym again, rediscovering your body and your fire. You're at work, not just grinding, but dominating. You're out with your boys, not looking for distractions, but building camaraderie. You're laughing, genuinely, fully, loudly. And she sees it? You post that story. Sunlight on your face, laughter in your voice, not a trace of longing in your eyes. And right there, it hits her. It's not regret she feels, it's loss. Because you're no longer the man pacing in the hallway of her life, begging to be let in. You've exited the building altogether. You're not in the shadows anymore. You're in the sun. And she's not in the frame. That's the moment that stings her. That smile, it tells her something loud and clear. You don't matter here anymore. Not because you hate her, not because you found someone else, but because you found yourself. The Stoic twist. The old Stoics didn't chase what wasn't theirs. They didn't beg for love. They mastered detachment, not from emotion, but from dependence. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." You imagined she was the key to your peace. She wasn't. Your suffering ended when your imagination did. You smiled because you finally returned to yourself. That is practical Stoicism. It's not about ignoring pain. It's about choosing peace over pity. She didn't value you when you were available, consistent, devoted. But the moment your joy became self-sourced, she noticed, not out of love, but out of loss. The man who left her behind. She'll scroll through your stories now, rewatch old messages, tell herself tales of what could have been. But you're gone, not dead, just done. You're walking the paths of wisdom now. And let's be brutally honest, that hurts her more than anything you could ever say. Because now she knows she was optional to your peace. She didn't break you, she revealed you. She underestimated a man who follows Stoic rules. What you must know, men, especially those in their 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, hear this. Don't chase validation. Be the man who builds a life that doesn't need constant applause. Don't linger in shadows. Stand in your sun, even if you stand alone. Don't beg for love. Attract it by becoming whole, not hollow. You're not too old. You're not too far gone. You're not too late. This moment, right now, is your rebirth. Let your smile be your declaration. I am no longer waiting. I am walking. I am winning. Because when you master the practical stoicism of letting go, you gain the power no man can fake and no woman can ignore. Self-ownership, self-respect, and yes, self-smiling. Keep walking the paths of wisdom, and if she sees you smiling without her, let her, because the man she didn't take seriously is now the man she can't forget. And that, gentlemen, is what hurts the most. If you find today's content useful to you, don't forget to share your feelings and lessons with us, or simply comment, "Very cool." It's a great encouragement for our channel makers. Thank you very much. 6. When you stop waiting for her validation. There was a time when you bent over backward for her approval. You dressed to impress. You softened your words. You walked on eggshells hoping she'd smile, nod, approve. You made yourself smaller just to keep her interest. But that era is over. When you stop chasing her validation, when you stop measuring your worth through her eyes, you reclaim your power. That's the moment everything changes. That's when the game flips. She doesn't expect it. It stings her pride. It shakes her illusion of control. Because when a man no longer waits for her praise, her attention, her emotional crumbs, she feels it. Deep, hard, undeniable. You rise and her hold vanishes. She no longer commands your emotions. You become untouchable. You become free. This isn't bitterness. This is clarity. This is stoicism in motion. Epictetus taught. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you choose to stop seeking external approval, you unlock the core of inner strength. That's how you win. You shift from a man at the mercy of someone else's whims to a man who masters himself. When she sees that you don't flinch, that you're no longer on edge hoping for her affection, she realizes her influence is gone. And that loss, it's devastating, because control was never about love. It was about power, and you just broke the chain. In today's world, men are flooded with noise, ads, influencers, so-called relationship coaches telling you to chase, to apologize, to prove. That's weakness disguised as wisdom. Real strength is stillness. Real power is presence. Real masculinity is self-sufficiency. Stop explaining yourself. Stop waiting for her to see your value. You must see your own worth first. As Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So guard your mind. Sharpen your resolve. Be the mountain, not the leaf. Epictetus would tell you, own your reaction. Own your destiny. That's the stoicism win. You don't win her back by grovelling. You win life by walking forward, proud, steady, grounded. Let her wonder where your need for her approval went. Let her feel the absence of your dependence. That absence speaks volumes. It's louder than any argument, more final than any goodbye. It says, I validate me, I choose me. That scares her more than your silence ever could. That's the shift that hurts her most. Not your anger, not your leaving, but your unshakable peace. Don't fall back into old habits. Don't soften your edge. Don't let temporary loneliness drag you back to emotional slavery. You've tasted freedom. Keep it. Stand tall in your own reflection. Let your silence speak. Let your confidence speak louder. Every step forward without her validation is a victory, a stoicism win. A man who needs no approval is a man who wins. So let's make it clear you don't need to be chosen. You choose yourself. You don't need her praise. You praise your own discipline, your own growth, your own purpose. That is what makes a man dangerous. That is what makes a man complete. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected. Live like it. Speak like it. Walk like it. That's how you master life. That's how you become untouchable. That's how you win. Don't wait. Don't explain. Win. 7. When you stop making her the center of your purpose, there's a shift she feels deep in her bones, and it rattles her more than she'd ever admit. It's not when you yell, not when you leave, not even when you disappoint her. It's when you change silently. When the man who once made her the sunrise and sunset of his world simply stops. You used to orbit her. Your mornings started with thoughts of her, your motivation, her smile, her silence, her chaos. Even your peace danced around her moods. She was the reason behind your grind, your why, even when she didn't earn that sacred space. But now you've remembered something she never expected you to rediscover yourself. That's when everything changes, because a man driven by validation is fragile, but a man who walks in purpose, he's dangerous. You didn't abandon her, you just stopped worshipping her, and that wounds her more than words or betrayal ever could. Your mission has grown, bigger than feelings, bigger than her. You've tapped into old Stoic wisdom, the kind that teaches you not to be ruled by emotion, but to master it. You stopped trying to impress and started to improve. Your body gets stronger, your business gets sharper, your mind becomes iron. No more chasing the highs and lows of her affection. Now you chase the version of you that's been waiting under all that noise. You're not cold, you're focused, and don't let anyone guilt you for that. The man who used to ask, "What does she think?" now asks, "What's my next move?" That change isn't loud, but it's deafening to her, because when a woman loses her grip on a man who once lived for her approval, she doesn't just lose control, she loses importance. She notices the silence, the stillness in you that used to tremble for her attention. She sees your discipline, your calm, your stoic principles in motion, and it hurts, because when she was the fire, you burned with need, but now you're the fire, and you burn with clarity. You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight. You simply be, and that rattles the soul of someone who thrived on being your center. You've become a man who doesn't just endure storms, he builds in them. A man with an iron mind, sharpened by setbacks, fueled by purpose. A man who no longer begs to be seen because he's too busy becoming. Don't fall back into old habits. Don't hand her back the crown you took off your own head. Be the man who leads his life with intention, not reaction. Let her watch you grow without needing her gaze. That is power. That is peace. That is old Stoic wisdom at work. So remember this, the deepest bruise is not rejection. It's replacement by purpose. When she's no longer your mission, she knows it. She feels the emptiness of no longer being the pulse of your ambition. And if you hold steady, rooted in Stoic principles, you won't just gain distance, you'll gain dignity. Let her wonder what changed. You don't owe her an answer. Your path speaks louder than any apology ever could. If you've made it to this point, you're not just surviving heartbreak, you're becoming unstoppable. Most men stay lost, orbiting someone who no longer fuels their purpose, but you're choosing to rise, to build, to lead. Comment this below to show you're walking a higher path. My purpose is bigger than her, and I'm finally free. 8. When you stop giving her emotional priority. This hurts a woman the most, when she realizes she can no longer emotionally control you. There comes a moment, sharp, quiet, final, when a man stops being ruled by her emotions. You used to drop everything when she was upset. Her sadness felt like a fire alarm. Her moods dictated the temperature in the room. If she was silent, you assumed it was your fault. If she was anxious, you tried to fix it. You became her emotional sponge, absorbing everything until you had nothing left for yourself. But not anymore. Now you've changed. Slowly, wisely, you've begun walking the paths of wisdom, where a man learns that compassion isn't the same as sacrifice, and that love doesn't require losing yourself. You still listen, you still care, but you no longer collapse under the weight of her inner storms. And that shift that rattles her more than you think. A woman who once relied on your emotional rescue now stands before a man anchored in himself, grounded, steady, unshaken. That's when it stings, not because you stopped loving her, but because you stopped letting her emotions steer your ship. Don't mistake this for cruelty. It isn't indifference. It's clarity. You must master yourself before you can walk beside another without being dragged under. Marcus Aurelius, probably, if he were dating today. This is one of the oldest Stoic rules. Don't let someone else's emotional turbulence sink your ship. Be present, but not pulled. Be strong, but not hard. That's the art. That's practical stoicism in action. You are not her therapist. You are not her emotional babysitter. You are her man. Or, if she doesn't value that role anymore, you're simply you. And that is enough. When she tries to stir the pot, provoke a reaction, or spin a narrative of neglect, you don't bite, you don't chase, you don't panic. You remain still. You speak with calm certainty, not desperate apologies. You act from your principles, not your panic. You've chosen reason over reactivity, and that, my friend, is rare. That's what hurts her most. Not revenge, not anger, not distance, but your peace, once so easily shattered, now stands tall like a mountain. She can scream, she can sulk, she can cry. But the man before her doesn't flinch. She realizes she can no longer use emotional chaos to control the tempo of your soul. That's the sting, the cold water, the sharp realization. You are no longer on call for her crises. You've stepped off the battlefield, not because you don't care, but because you care about both of you enough to stop the codependency. You've learned one of the most vital Stoic rules. Don't tie your well-being to another person's whims. You give from overflow, not depletion. You help, but you don't drown. This isn't just strength. This is wisdom, the kind that's been earned through years of trying, failing, fixing, and finally understanding. This is what men discover when they walk the paths of wisdom, a life where love and boundaries are not enemies, but allies. So here's the truth. If she no longer values you, if she cannot respect your calm, if she only loved you when you were losing yourself for her, let her feel the absence of that old version of you. Let her sit in the silence you used to fill, and let yourself stand tall, unshaken, unbothered, untangled. Be the man she cannot control. Be the man you respect. That is practical stoicism. That is love with a backbone. That is power, quiet, calm, and unbreakable. 9. When you live like you're already fulfilled, don't wait to be chosen. Be the man who chooses himself. This hurts a woman the most. Not when you argue, not when you beg, not when you try to prove your worth, but when you stop needing her validation, when you stop chasing her attention like it's oxygen, when you stop living like your soul is on pause, waiting for her permission to press play. Nothing shakes her more than seeing the man who once waited for her, now thriving without her. That's the wound, that's the sting, that's the silent heartbreak. You must become the man who lives as if he is already fulfilled, already whole, already full, because that man cannot be manipulated, cannot be dismissed, cannot be ignored. That man radiates power. That man doesn't seek approval. He gives it. He sets the tone. He defines the terms. No man is free who is not master of himself, said Epictetus, the Stoic master. Let that wisdom burn into your mind. You must master yourself. You must master your life. Before, you were the man she could toy with, keep in the waiting room of her attention. You moved like a shadow, hoping her light would shine on you. You smiled to please. You paused your goals. You made her your mission. But Stoicism teaches freedom is the only worthy goal in life. And freedom begins when you stop placing your happiness in someone else's hands. You must reclaim your center. That's how you win. That's how Stoicism wins. That's how men win. Now, you smile for real, not for her. You laugh with depth, not to be noticed, but because life itself amuses you. You look in the mirror and respect what you see, not because she does, but because you do. That shift shakes her. She expected you to wait. She expected you to stay available, emotionally kneeling, watching, hoping. Instead, you rose. You evolved. You built something she no longer owns: your independence, your wholeness, your peace. That's what she never saw coming. Let her watch. Let her wonder. Let her realize she can no longer reach you because you stopped reaching for her. That's the power move. That's the Stoic path. Epictetus didn't preach detachment to be cold. He taught it to make men free, to help them stop being slaves to approval, lust, or loss. You must stand tall in that truth. You must live it. Because the world needs more men who don't flinch when they lose attention, but who gain clarity, who don't spiral when love leaves, but rise higher, who turn silence into strength, distance into dominance. Don't text her. Don't wait. Don't scroll her photos like a starving man sniffing crumbs. Let it go. Let her go. And build. Build your mind. Build your body. Build your empire. Because the man who builds wins. The man who stands alone wins. The man who doesn't need her wins. That is Stoicism. That is Epictetus. That is how Stoicism wins. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. You are not here to impress. You are here to conquer. Life bends to the man who bends for no one. Let that be your creed. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Again, Epictetus. This is not about revenge. It's about resurrection. It's about becoming. It's about power. The kind of power no one can give you, and no one can take. So stand up, walk forward, embrace your solitude, love your process, respect your path. You are not broken. You are reborn. That's what hurts her the most. That's what stuns the world. That's what frees your soul. Be the man who no longer waits. Be the man who wins. And that's it for today. Fellas, remember, in a world where people confuse kindness with weakness, the moment you stop chasing is the moment your worth gets noticed. A woman loses the most when she realizes you had quiet strength and she overlooked it. Here's my advice. Don't beg to be valued. Be so steady in your silence that your absence says everything your words never had to. This channel is for men who speak less, see more, and move like they're not afraid to lose anyone who treats them like they're replaceable. Comment the word silence if you've ever pulled away and felt your value double the moment you stopped trying. Say it. Let it echo. Silence. Until next time, stay sharp, stay grounded. Peace.